And you're live, Chairman.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to this Strategy and Resources meeting on Thursday, 22nd June 2023. My name is Councillor Tony Fittock. I am Vice Chairperson of this committee and will be chairing this meeting in the absence of Councillor Durham, the Chairperson. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and live stream. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent upon correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page and paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. May I have apologies for absence, please, Ms Bird?
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. Apologies have been received from Councillor Durham. Thank you, Chairman.
Great, thank you. Okay, agenda item 3. It is recommended that the minutes of the Strategy and Resources Committee held on 16th of March 2023 on pages 5 to 10 are approved as a true and accurate record. As I was not in attendance, is there a member that can move this item, please?
I will propose that we move the minutes of that meeting.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you. Are there any matters of inaccuracy that members want to raise? Okay. Can we agree this by assent? Thank you. Agenda item 4, declaration of interest, to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interest and non-registrable interest related to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise through the meeting. Item number 5. Do we have any public participation, Tara?
No, Chairman, we don't have any tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 6. We move to agenda item 6, annual report in relation to the RIPA found on pages 11 to 42. Mr. Clark, please, can you present the report?
Thank you, Chair. For those who don't know me, my name is Spencer Clark. I'm the Community Safety Manager at Malden District Council. And I'm going to...
That's a 5. Oh, that's a 10.
And I'm quickly going to take members through the report on the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act. You'll see that the purpose of the report there is to let you know about the activity in the most recent year and consider the recommendations of the desktop review conducted by the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office, IPCO, which I did in November 2022. So you'll note the recommendations there. So purpose of the report is to note the activity in relation to what we've been doing in the last year, to agree to receive review on an annual basis going forward, because that's what we're meant to do on a statutory basis. So each year we'll bring a report letting you know about the activity, and more importantly, under 2 there, to approve the new policy, which is Appendix 1, and to note the action plan, which is Appendix 2, following the desktop review which I had with IPCO. So I'll quickly just go through the key issues, just point by point. You'll see under 3.11 that it gives elected members the link to the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act. So just to give everyone an overview of what it's all about. Under 3.12, you'll see that our last inspection was held in 2018, and following that inspection, the council underwent a restructure. So I was asked by the Director of Service Delivery to undertake the virtual desktop review and act as RIPA coordinator, which happened in November. So there's a lot of information that went through that. A lot of things were good and a lot of things were in need of improvement. And you'll see that that was all attached in the action plan as well. So under 3.13, and I won't go through all of these in detail, but just to really flag up which was needed. One which we did need was to refresh our policy. So we did have a policy in place, but the most recent one I could find was March 2015. And some of the things have changed since then, although the whole content of RIPA hasn't changed. Things like covert human resources, that had changed and come in. So the new policy brings all that in and makes it compliant now. The covert human intelligence sources, or CHISs as they're known. It also, one of the other things that's flagged, that the purpose is that we report on an annual basis to members on RIPA. Even if there's been no activity, we still have to report back to members as to what's been happening. Things which were flagged up is things like test purchase activity we don't generally do as a district. That's more a county council function. And there's a few things about information policies. Again, things like probably most districts would probably use RIPA through the use of CCTV if they were doing directed surveillance. But as you've flagged there, we outsource our monitoring service to Chelmsford City Council, and all of the staff in there are licensed, and as part of that licensing and accreditation training with the police, they undergo RIPA training as one of the modules. What we did do back last year was got a training budget in place, which is 20 e-learning licenses for appropriate staff. So subject to this being approved tonight, I will then go out to the managers to make recommendations on what staff should be trained on RIPA. When the inspector was in, he thought that was an appropriate level of training for a district of this size. So that's good, so they're happy with that. So there are the main sort of points of it. So really, it's you've had a copy of the new policy under Appendix 1, and there's also the action plan. So I prepared a letter for Mr. Holmes, the Director of Service Delivery, to put back to IPCO as such, just telling them what we propose to do as a result of the inspection in November and when we intend to complete it by. And it's quite a challenging date. We've said that we'll complete it by the end of September this year, but most of the things have already been completed and are in place. So really, it's opening up for any questions for any elected members. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. The recommendations are found on page 11 of the report, little 1, that members note the activity of the council in relation to RIPA and agree to receive a review report and policy review on an annual basis going forward. And little 2, that members approve the new RIPA policy for the council, Appendix 1, and note the action plan, Appendix 2, agreed with the Investigatory Power Commissioner Office, IPCO. I so move the move. Do I have a seconder? Seconded. Okay. Members, up to you. Yep. Okay. Councillor Fuka.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, it's just a piece of it's really just a piece of internal housekeeping. It's a shame it took us 6 months to respond to Sir Brian. I think if members just look at page 42, you'll see the reasons which I think were given as staff vacancies and the elections. I'm just pleased that we didn't blame COVID and the pandemic as well. So it's good to see that we're moving on from that. But yes, Chairman, I think the proposal was seconded, and I'd certainly support it so that we can move on.
Okay. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. The fact that we didn't do or haven't been doing this over the last few years, is there anything that should have been reported that hasn't been reported? Are there any gaps in terms of our knowledge or in terms of how the council has been operating? So is there anything that that has been raised as a result of that?
Councillor Siddle, no, to be honest, not really, no. I mean, we as a district are a very low user of RIPA powers. Even though we're a low user, we still have to report back on an annual basis. We still should refresh our policy on an annual basis, and we should still maintain a certain level of competence in relation to RIPA. Most of the officers who I've spoken to do have a level of competence, but it's not necessarily documented in their training records. So by providing the e-learning module, we'll have that training records in place, we'll have a new policy in place, and should we have to use RIPA, we'll have processes in place and authorisation levels in place to deal with it.
Councillor Driver.
Thank you, Chair. You talked about the tight timescale in terms of doing this. Does that include the training as well?
Yes, it does. But to be honest, soon after this meeting, I intend to contact the managers. I expect the staff to be nominated, appropriate staff to be nominated, and for the staff to complete that module relatively quickly. It's not an onerous task, and I think by putting a challenging timescale in, it means it'll get complete on time. So I was quite keen on doing that.
Okay, members, can we agree the recommendations by assent? Thank you. We move to agenda item 7, fees and charges update, found on pages 43 to 50. Mrs. Green, please present the report.
Thank you, Chairman. So this report is before you tonight to consider 3 different elements of our current fees and charges processes and policies, in particular to building control services and also car parking income. So if I may, members, I'll just take you through the 3 different elements. So with respect to building control fees, we are proposing an uplift of 12.3%, and that is in line with all the other inflationary increases that have been applied to our fees and charges this year. As members will be aware, building control is slightly different in that we aren't actually allowed to make any form of surplus from building control fees. Therefore, before the inflationary increase was applied, we've had to undertake a review to ensure that that increase would not put us in a position of essentially making a profit on that account. So I can confirm that review's been done. The inflationary increase that's been proposed will ensure that we do not exceed those levels, and therefore it's proposed to implement that 12.3% increase with immediate effect. The second increase is relating to car park charges. So we have been undertaking a review of the council officers' car park. In the main, because of the hybrid working, it does mean that from time to time there is spare capacity within the permitted area, and therefore we are proposing 2 separate charges. So the first is a permit scheme which will be for the council officers, and that permit will entitle our partners, members of the public, local businesses to purchase an annual ticket that will enable them to use the car park throughout the year. And the proposal for that is £500 per year per permit, and that is reflective of the charges that we make to existing partners. The second is an off-peak resident parking scheme. So as members may be aware, we do have an off-peak resident permit scheme in the High Street, and what we're proposing is to expand that again to the council offices, and the intention will be that that off-peak resident parking will be offered to properties that are adjacent to the council offices, and the fee for that is intended to be £88.70 per year, which is in line with the existing residency permit scheme. Members, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. The recommendations are found on page 43 of the report. Little 1, that members approve the revised fees for building control services from 22nd of August 2023. And little 2, that members approve the new charge for permits for use of the council offices car park from 15th July 2023. Do I have a seconder, please? Okay. Okay. Members, over to you.
I think, bearing in mind you've seconded it and Councillor Siddle's proposed it, perhaps we should...
Thank you, Councillor Fogart. Councillor Stamp.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Does this, I've worked it out, it's £9.61 a week. If it's, I've got 61 according to my calculator. Do forgive me, Chairman. It's one on my phone. I think that's really cheap. Does it include the cost of it? Is it including any resurfacing, breakage of machines, admin? What's the profit on it? I mean, we popped to London yesterday. As you know, we were protesting, and it cost us to park in London astronomical amount of money. And now I know we're not in London, we're in Malden, but I can't believe that we're accepting £9.61 a week for somebody to park in our car park. So the question mainly is, does it include resurfacing, maintenance, etc., and what will the profit be at the end of it, providing you get full occupancy or half occupancy? Thank you.
Thank you, members. First of all, this is to utilise existing spaces that are not currently in use. So there is no additional cost because those spaces are already there and we are already maintaining the office car park. So this would genuinely be additional income.
Still a cost. Sorry to interrupt, Chairman, in this room. There's still a cost. There's still a cost. Yeah.
Okay, can we have one at a time, please? Thank you.
So the only additional cost would be the administration of the actual permit scheme. So that's the actual additional costs of running the scheme, because we will be utilising the existing spaces in the car park that otherwise would have previously been used by our own staff.
Councillor.
And in terms of the cost is reflective of the current charges that are included within our existing arrangements with existing partners. And I would just remind members that we are undertaking a full review of the car park charges as part of a larger piece of work on the car parking charge strategy this year, and therefore these charges would be picked up as part of that review.
I think we've got to be cautious. If we're going to say that we're going to charge £9.61 a week and then in a year's time, or when this strategy is going to be reviewed and replaced, and to be honest with you, we've got to look at our financial situation at this council. I really do feel that it's exceptionally cheap, well, very, very cheap, and especially businesses. Anybody can park. I think it did say commercial vehicles somewhere. Did it say vans that could park here? Now that's actually good value for money for a van to be able to park on a private premises, which is what we are really. We're a council, and I don't actually agree with this, and I won't be supporting this motion, Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Okay, Councillor Fogart. Councillor Fogart, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to speak to building control fees first, but perhaps we should do parking then, if you...
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go back to that later. So paragraph 3.2.2, I'm interested to hear, Mrs. Green, what the tenants are paying, and is that reflected in their tenancy agreement, or are they coming to us separately, or are we allowing tenants to have additional passes, and if so, at what fee? 3.2.2, I would have thought that members should be mentioned in there. I mean, to be honest, no one's offered me a new parking permit. I may have missed it somewhere, but no one's offered me. Chairman, I've got several questions on these. Do you want them to carry on, or do you want me to do them one by one in relation to the next 5 paragraphs?
I think you can carry on for the moment, Councillor Fogart.
Okay, so paragraph 3.2.4. It says here that the offer additional car parking permits to partners and the number of permits having been purchased. So again, how many of these been purchased, who's purchased them, and what have they paid? And then moving on to 3.2.6, I mean, who is actually checking the car park at the moment? I was in the car park today. My understanding is that we are charging for car parking, but there were lots of cars in the car park today with no parking permits on at all. You know, I see that there were, and since we started to charge for the car park, what's the revenue been? And then moving on to paragraph 3.3.1, I think you've said that this compares, through you, Chairman, with White Horse Lane car park, this £500 a year. So for clarity, is an annual season ticket at White Horse Lane car park £500 a year. My understanding is it's not that figure. And again, Councillor Stamp and I differ, but £9.60 a week seems exceptionally good value. And also, why aren't we, for example, offering monthly permits at an enhanced rate? So people could buy a monthly permit. So if they come into the area and they only want a permit for a month, then we can charge them for an enhanced rate. At the moment, it's all or nothing. My personal view is that there will be a lot of people out nearby who've got large vans who will take advantage of this. And then finally, sorry, Chairman, 3.4.3. I mean, we're now £88.70 for this off-street car parking, which includes Saturday, all day Saturday and Sunday. So £88.70, all day Saturday and Sunday, and then out of hours the rest of the time. That equates to £1.70 a week, which again seems, you know, exceptionally good value. And is there a charge? And I can't see it in the report, but there should be a charge in this to cover our costs. So, for example, if somebody changes their vehicle and they want a new permit, and we have to reissue a permit, are we going to apply an admin charge? Because at £1.70 a week, if people change their vehicles every month or every couple of months, which some people do, particularly if they're using works vehicles, £1.70 a week isn't going to cover the administration. And then 4.2, Chairman. First of all, I should have started with this, Mr. Green. Can I just say I'm really grateful for you bringing this forward, because this was very much driven by members, so I'm pleased to see it on the table. And then 4.3, Chairman, basically exactly what Councillor Stamp said, but I'll frame it differently. What is the cost of maintaining the council car park? We don't know. I mean, I don't know how much maintenance, I don't know what's in the budget for maintaining it, but we should be trying to get to the stage where we should make it cost neutral. But there's a lot of questions, Chairman. I've got them all here, so we go through them one by one. And I look forward to the responses, but I would like to come back on building control. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Green, have you?
Thank you, members. So if I can pick up the off-peak car park charges, so that's for the residents. So that scheme is simply an extension. Apologies, members. If I may pick up the question with regards to the resident scheme, that is simply an extension of the existing schemes that we run with the high street car parks. So that reflects the fees and charges that were agreed by members earlier this year. So that is simply an extension of what has already been agreed. In respect of the council officers car park, we can very happily provide members with a summary of the costs of the car park charges. The intention of this particular scheme was to ensure that we were taking the maximum opportunity from the fact that we do have a car park that at the moment is underutilised. Our car park regulation order that sets out what we can charge doesn't currently permit us to make an hourly car park charge for the permitted area which staff use. So this policy is enabling us to start to be able to get an income and a return from those spaces that are currently underutilised. The £500 that is proposed is reflective of the current charges that are made to existing tenants' leaseholders. That's not necessarily in every single lease that's been set out, because we have tenants that some of those have got longer established leases with us. But any new arrangements, any new leases or any renewal of leases, we are specifically picking this up in terms of car park provision. We're being very clear about the numbers of permits that those leases entitle those leaseholders to, and where possible specifically identifying the cost of those leases. We have recently undertaken a review of all of our existing permit schemes that we have underway for our existing partners, and that has identified that where we have, for example, allowed partners to have a certain number of spaces through their lease, or they've specifically purchased a number of spaces, that we have allowed permits to be issued in order to enable multiple staff to be able to use those spaces. But again, part of this review is that we've looked at how many spaces are actually being used. So to give you an example, if we have issued or we've allowed 10 permits for one particular organisation, but because they have multiple staff, they have been asked for permits for to allow multiple staff to park. So they might only be using 10, but we might have given them 15 to allow for the fact they've got different staff on different dates. So part of this review, and members may have come across some concerns that have been raised by tenants, is that we've moved back to, if a tenant is paying for 10 spaces, they have 10 permits, and those permits can then be passed over to various members of staff. So it's enabling us to be sure that on any one day that we only have those number of spaces being used. So we're looking to rationalise the use of the car park, and to be very clear with our partners that if they have 10 permits within their lease, they will be given physically 10 permits, and that enables us to control the car park in a better way. So this is all part of that review, ensuring that our tenants are very clear about the spaces that they're able to use, that we're very clear about where that spare capacity is. We've reviewed the number of spaces that our own staff use, and we therefore identified that there are a number of spaces that we feel can be offered to be purchased to enable us to have additional income, but without causing any compromise in terms of having sufficient space for our existing leaseholders that have got permits and our own staff. The £500 is slightly less than that. It is less than the high street car parks. The permit for a high street car park's about £700 at the moment. This is to reflect that these are not right on the high street. They are, they're not quite as accessible, and it's to encourage the take up of those permits. If there is a good take up of them, then it certainly is something we would want to review as part of the strategy for going forward. How much interest we have, to do some benchmarking around our permit scheme across the board, a benchmark of all our car parking charges, but that needs to be done as part of a wider review to ensure that we are making sure that we are being consistent across all our car parks. So these proposals are, in essence, bringing all of those arrangements to bring consistency to them.
Come back. I mean, you mentioned for clarity.
Okay.
You mentioned consistency, but we've clearly got a difference of 46% between an annual price of a permit here and White Horse. I mean, these annual permits here, I actually see them, being used for different things rather than trips to the high street. But two things that, from what you've said, how many permits have been issued over and above to tenants of this building that sit outside of their agreements, and how much revenue is coming in through those schemes, and what plans have you got to advertise this scheme?
Thank you, members. So the permits that the tenants currently have actually reflect the physical number that are permitted now under their tenancy agreements or their lease agreements. Sorry, Councillor Fluke, if you could just remind me of your second question. Oh, and in terms of advertising, so so marketing, they will be advertised on our website. We'll do some, I think members have indicated that they would like to do some specific targeting of local businesses, and we intend to contact the local residents adjacent to the offices to make them aware of the expansion of the scheme if members approve.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I absolutely support the policy, of course, but I do have some doubts about the value for money, which does seem exceedingly good. I mean, we do get other benefits from tenants besides the car parking, so I kind of see that. But I'm also a bit concerned. I think Councillor Stamp referred to it, if my memory serves, that you know, if we review it and realise that we should have been charging double, they will frankly be held to pay. Not that I'm suggesting she said that, but you know, we were there years ago with the splash park, which used to be free and then suddenly wasn't, and that was just £1 a go, and there was held to pay, frankly. So I think it's worth getting it absolutely right when we begin, so that we don't end up doubling it, which is in fact perfectly reasonable but won't sound it in the Malden and Burnham. And it does seem odd. £15–20 a week, I would have thought was more like it, but see what other members think. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson. Sorry, miles away.
Don't worry, honestly, I don't know how you're managing tonight. My hat's off to you. No, what I wanted to raise is really, we charge £10 a day for the prom park, which I personally think is really, really expensive. And yet we're offering people £10 a month to park in the council offices. Well, I mean, for commercial vehicles, I think that should be double checked. I mean, Wickford train station's £90.50 a day, or I think it might have been reduced slightly lately. And I just think that, particularly in these difficult times, we need to raise as much revenue as we can to support our residents through these difficult times. And I think we need to review this further to find out how much we can actually charge so that we can support the residents, because I just think that £9 odd a month is really ridiculously cheap. And I think we have to support the locals, we have to support the people who need the support, and we keep saying we want to run this authority as a business. Well, a business would review how much can we charge for this? How much would people be prepared to pay it? And I think we should defer this until we've done further. I'm also slightly concerned because my husband works in London and he was working 2 days a week in London. They've now upped it to 3 because they said their clients want them back in the office. So are we now saying we're never going to get any staff back in the council offices? Are we saying that we're going to completely do away with physical meetings and they're all going to be online? Because if that's the case, I think that needs to go out to consultation to check it. And I just think, for me, I don't have sufficient information to determine this tonight. I think it's a good idea to charge for car parking, I really do, and I think it's a way we can put money back into the pot. But I just think we could do with a little bit more information. So it's not all negative, but I think we could do better, and I think for our residents we should do better. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Councillor Siddle or Councillor Lay first?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, as a representative of the town, there is a pressure on parking around the town and around this area. So this is, with the increase in building, there is a need for more off-road parking and more the ability of the council to charge for what is effectively, for example, in the evening, a dead space is good and would be a relief to some of the residents around here. So I think it's important that we do that. It's fixing the pricing points, which is the other members have mentioned, is the pricing points need to have the data behind it to justify what we're doing, whether we're too low or too easy. And obviously in these struggling times, families around this area, around Malden East, around Malden South, do need some places to park or to do their vehicles. So I think that's important. I noticed I think it's 3.4.3, you said that certain roads will be entitled to park in the council offices. Do you have details of that? Because obviously there are residents here who might be in adjacent roads for the evening who can't actually use that facility but might be in a road around there. So I think that's 3.4.3 is specific roads. So it would be nice to be open and say exactly where we feel we need to help the residents, particularly say Queen Street, King Street. There is always a pressure on parking, and that's just down the road from the offices. So my point was just to clarify where we're going with the actual residents of Malden Town who can actually use the car park. Just whether we can have an answer, or sorry, councillor, first time I've spoken here, so whether we could have an answer on that one, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, just in regards to Councillor White's comments around the staff car parking, when we've looked at the provision of the permits scheme, we have ensured that there is more than sufficient parking for current staff So this is to reflect the fact that we do have hybrid work and we do have staff that are in attendance, and therefore there would be a significant level of car parking that would remain for staff. In respect of the specific streets, I may have that, members. If not, I'm happy to come back to you on that. One thing, if members feel that they would prefer to align the car park charges to the high street car parks, that may be something that you may wish to consider. So I can find out the cost of the current high street car park permits, and if members wish, you could consider aligning it to the existing arrangements, which I believe are 798, and I will just check that for you, members.
Okay, that's the driver.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to pick up Councillor White's point about hybrid working and the extent to which we understand the extent of that hybrid working, is it clear going forward the extent of hybrid working, or are there any potential plans to change that, increase or otherwise? I think there may well be some concerns raised depending on what that level of hybrid working is. Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure that's relevant to the debate as such in terms of the charges. But, I mean, if there's a quick answer to it, then.
I can assure members that the provision that's been made for staff is based upon the maximum levels of staff that we do have in. So it's based upon the maximum, not the minimum. And therefore, I don't think there's likely to be any significant changes to that. And that's based upon, from memory, at least 50% of the staff being in at any one time, at least. So there is quite significant capacity in the car park.
Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. My concern is in terms of the local residents and parking in the evening, is how do we police that? And it's not really about the amount of money. My concern would be if people are parked overnight, but they haven't left at 9 o'clock in the morning, what happens? Who's going to evict them from the car park? How are they going to be evicted from the car park? Yeah, so that to me is where the bad publicity might come from. Yeah, and then in terms of that, so how is that going to be? So, and if we do a penalty, how would we charge that penalty? So that is more my concern than the £500. Yeah, if we are going to do it, then really we should match it with what happens in the other car parks in the town. So have a similar fee in terms of the annual one. And how many people are we offering this to? So the more we offer it to, the more complexity there's going to be in terms of policing the car park. And that 9 o'clock cut-off point. How do we get rid of them?
So thank you, members. So the annual fee for the season tickets for the high street car parks is 716. So that's consistent across the car parks. With regards to policing it, because it's in the permitted area, then we are able to issue penalty notices. So they would be treated in exactly the same way as if they overstayed in any of our other car parks. So there would be a penalty notice and the rate would be exactly the same. And as in part of introducing the scheme, we intend to put up much clearer signage to ensure, and as part of the permit scheme, anybody taking up the permit will be very, very clear with them about the times and the consequences of failure to remove their cars by that particular time.
Last time, Mr. Floker, Councillor Floker.
Well, what happens if I need a point of clarification?
Please speak.
To fully understand this, we need to sort of understand some of the intelligence around the annual season tickets in the other car parks. I mean, as far as you know, for example, are there waiting lists for these? And if so, are people likely to come here, which is going to free up space in the high street car parks? the other thing is I didn't quite catch or understand what Mrs. Green said with regards to hourly charges in the permitted places. So are you saying that sections of the car park are only going to be used by people who've got permits, and the other is going to be pay and display? From a marketing point of view, bearing in mind the council needs to get this off the ground, I do wonder whether moving from the officer's recommendation of £500 and going to 716 might just be one jump too big. So my thinking is, Chairman, to try and get this scheme off the ground would be to meet that halfway somewhere, and then see if we can develop it and move it forward from there. But I would be interested to know about the history behind the permits. I can remember there was a time when they were highly sought after, and we did actually put a ceiling on the number of annual permits in Whitehorse Lane.
So, Mr. Councillor, is that a proposal to increase it to 625?
Well, it's an amendment.
Amendment.
I get a bit confused about these things, but I think it's an amendment to the
Yeah.
proposal. I mean, we've drifted towards 700.
Do we have a seconder for that at all?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Did you?
Thank you, Chairman. I have just got the proposed streets, which I think one of the members had asked for. So the current proposed streets are Princess Road, Queen Street, Warwick Drive, King Street, Queen's Avenue, America Street, Wants Road and Tenterfield Road.
So, just for clarity, I think we're moving somewhere on the annual fee, but the Pacific Roads fee, I mean, members have spoken to £88.70 annual fee, but to me it does seem
Thank you, Chairman. That is the current fee that is charged on all of our other car parks. So at the moment that would be consistent. However, as I mentioned before, we will be doing that full review of all the fees and charges as part of a wider piece of strategy work this year, which will inform the car parking charges ready for next year.
But I think these are actually, Chairman, these from the streets. I don't know the streets as well as you, but I know some of the names. You know, these are very much premium because these streets are very much around the council offices. So I would have thought it would have been a premium. They should pay more here, and you know, I don't think that's unreasonable. If we're going to increase the other one, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't increase this. I mean, this is free parking on Saturdays and Sundays for local residents, and it strikes me as being very good value.
Chairman, one of the big aims of the resident is really to assist local residents with car parking. The intention is not to drive income for the council. This is about recognising that we have some real parking pressures, and this is to run alongside the current scheme that's run by the South Essex Parking Partnership with the resident schemes there. So this is very much about supporting local residents, recognising there is that pressure.
Okay, can we move on for this one? You had a question on the building control, Councillor. Councillor A?
Just want to say that I think it should be fair for the residents around this area, not be discriminated against. We're not looking as a council, I'd imagine, to rinse people of money. We're looking to be fair about what we're charging for people and what they're doing. So I think we've got to have a parity with the other car parks, and certainly around this area is one of the poorer areas of Malden and housing. This will help relieve the parking in this particular area and should go forward with a fair pricing module. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fuki, you wanted to go back to building control quickly.
I mean, obviously these residents' permits, they add an enormous amount of value to people's houses, particularly when they don't have parking outside, so for example a terraced house or something. Yeah, if I can just go back to 3.1 and building control fees. I'm sitting here thinking, Mrs. Green, if this one's your bag or not. Actually, the actual. Oh, I suppose it is. Yeah. So, can you confirm the annual income that we receive from building controls and what our costs are? Because I don't believe it's a statutory service that the council has to provide, and I do know from dealing with other councils throughout the southeast that it's almost rare now for councils to provide this service. And if we're not cost neutral, what's the difference, and whether or not this is the time that we should not provide the services and let people go to their own, make their own arrangements, which they're entitled to do.
Thank you, Chairman. So the budget for the current year, the budgeted income based upon previous projections is 223,000, and the cost of the service. So that income should reflect the cost of the service because it should be cost neutral. My understanding is that at the moment, with the 12.3% increase, should mean that service is at that level or somewhere close to that. So we're not looking at carrying forward a significant deficit. So this particular 12.3% would aim to get us to a point of break even. So that's the intention. We are going to be carrying out a wider piece of work as part of looking at next year's fees and charges to do a more in-depth analysis of our costs. But as they are within the budget, this 12% increase would reflect the need to ensure that it is a cost neutral service.
Just finally on this, Chairman, so the 12.3%, how does that compare with the public sector who undertake these tests or these inspections?
So we have taken advice from our building control manager, who assures us that this is comparable with the current market. But again, as part of the bigger piece of work that we'll be doing for next year's fees and charges, there will be a wider piece of work to benchmark the proposed costs with the private sector.
Okay. Anyone else want to? Okay. So we have a recommendation found on page 43 of the report for little 1, that members approve revised fees for building control services from 22nd of August 2023. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Okay. Now on little 2, obviously. Okay. We've got recommendation on page 43 for little item 2. Now there has been an amendment proposed and seconded for this item, but looking at the actual recommendation, it covers a number of different charges, isn't it? In terms of a daily charge and the 625, 500, 625. So I'm not entirely sure what wording to put in for that amendment.
Through you,
Yep.
Chairman. The amendment was to the annual fee, wasn't it? So it's that members approve the new charges for permits for use of the council car park from the 15th of July 2023, noting the amendment of the annual fee from £500 to £625.
Okay, so little 2 will be the members approve the new charges for permits of the council offices car park from 15th July 2023, noting amendment of annual sum to £625. I so move. To have a seconder?
I might be able to help, but I could be wrong, so forgive me. I think we need, you'll remember this anyway, because I was going to say you've been around a long time, but that sounds really rude. But you need to put the amendment first, and we'll vote on the amendment, and then the amendment becomes a substantive.
Yeah, that's what I just said. So
no, but we haven't voted on the amendment, Chairman.
Okay.
We have to vote on the amendment first.
I so move. So do I have a seconder? Okay. So can we agree on that by assent?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, Chairman, I don't, so I'd like it recorded that I don't agree. I think they all should be the same. So I'm quite happy for it to go, but I would like it noted I don't support that.
Okay. Anybody else dissent? Show of hands, please, yeah. 3, 4, that's 4. And please we note that Councillor Stamp is in disagreement. Okay, thank you. Okay. We move to agenda item 8, supplementary estimates, environment, procurement.
Sorry, and I'm going to help you. You now have to put the substantive motion forward, which is the whole motion with that amount, 625, Chairman. And you put that forward. And I'd like to raise a point of clarity. Councillor Siddle did leave the room, and normally when you leave the room, you can't vote. Well, if you disagree, that's fine. It's not on planning. It's for every out. I've seen Councillor Channer do it.
Chairman, I think we can move on because it's not as if it's a hung vote, but I'm sure Miss Holmes will contact us in the morning and tell us what's right and what's wrong.
Okay. Are we okay to move on?
You've got to put it forward to vote.
I thought we did just vote.
No, you voted on the amendment, so now you put forward the substantive recommendations, including the amendment. That's
Okay. The recommendations are found on pages 43 of the report, that members approve Little 1, revised fees for building control services from 22nd of August 2023. Little item 2, that members approve the new charge for permits for the council offices car park from 15th July 2023, noted amendment of annual fee increase to £625. I so move. To have a seconder. Can we agree that by assent?
I'd like it noted that I don't agree with it.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 8. We move to agenda item 8, supplementary estimates, environment, procurement, exemptions and use of reserves, 1st of January to 31st of March 2023, found on pages 51 to 54. Ms Lucas, please could you present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as you say, this report is to set out supplementary estimates, environments, procurement exemptions and use of reserves for the last quarter of the last financial year. This is a regular report which comes to this committee and is just for noting. So as set out in paragraph 1, the purpose of the report is to report any such environments and supplementary estimates agreed under delegated powers where they are below the levels requiring approval by this committee, and to seek approval where they are above the levels requiring approval by this committee. And also to inform the committee of any procurement exemptions that have been granted and to report on the use of reserves. At paragraphs 3.1 and 3.2, you'll find details of the delegation levels. And members, you should note that in this period there was one reportable virement, and this was set out in paragraph 3.3.1. There were no supplementary estimates, and there were 2 procurement exemptions which are detailed at paragraph 3.5. One of these relates to the purchase of an electric buggy, and the second one relates to the purchase of some radio licenses and emergency planning equipment. I think the detail of the report is reasonably self-explanatory, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions members may have. Thank you.
Okay, the recommendations are found on page 51 of the report. Little 1, that the environments as detailed in paragraph 3.3.1 be noted. That it's like little 2, that the procurement exemptions as detailed in paragraph 3.5.1 be noted. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Okay, members, thank you. Stan.
Chairman, I would like to welcome Ms Lucas to this committee. I don't think she's been introduced to everybody as the new Section 151 officer. We introduced her at PG&A, and I would like to say welcome, and because I don't know if everybody knows who you are, and I hope you're doing very, very well.
Anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Sorry. Councillor Thompson, sorry. Got the wrong glasses on.
Thank you, Chairman. And I promise this is an innocent question, not a trick one. Some time ago, and I forget when, the council did actually agree not to receive reports for noting at committees, and I know there are some exceptions, so this is probably one for Councillor. I'm so sorry, Mr. Dodson. Who would do that to you? Yeah, is this one of the exceptions? I know there are some that we have to see, and I'm just asking because I don't know. Thank you.
You, Chair. Yes, it is one of those that needs to come even for noting. Thanks.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. That makes it easier. We move to agenda item 9, provisional outturn found on pages 55 to 66. Ms Lucas, please, could you present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide members of this committee with the provisional outturn position for the last financial year, which ended on the 31st of March 2023. It's also to inform members in relation to the Council's general fund position, its earmarked reserves and its capital commitments as at that date. Members will note that Appendix 2 details the outstanding revenue commitments that are requested to be brought forward into 23-24 financial year. Appendix 3 notes the movement in earmarked reserves and asks that they will be approved. And Appendix 4 sets out the capital commitments, which again are requested to be brought forward into the new financial year 23-24. And members are also asked to approve the use of £421,000 of additional business rates income in order to close the budget gap for this current financial year 23-24. And I'll just explain slightly more about that in one moment. So just to give the headlines in terms of the overall financial position for last year. Overall, the Council achieved an underspend of £235,000 against its revised budget for that year. And that compares to a budgeted position which needed a drawdown on general balances of just over £900,000. So while it is an improvement on that position, it does still mean that the Council required a drawdown on reserves overall of £702,000 from its general fund in order to balance the position for that financial year. So it was improvements to the original budgeted position, but still one which required a drawdown on the general fund. So the final balance on the general fund for the last financial year was £5.1 million, which is still comfortably above the recommended minimum of £2.6 million. So again, that's a positive position. However, members will be more than aware that there is significant challenges facing the Council in both the current year and in future years in the MTFS. So I mentioned earlier that there is a request that extra business rates income that was achieved during the last financial year can be used to help balance the budget for this year. The way the business rates income works means that we have to pay an additional levy on that additional income that we received last year. So that contributed to the overall position for last year. However, going forward, as a Council, we're relatively confident that there will be an uplift in that business rates income going forward. So we're proposing that that will be reflected in the budget for this year and for future years. So that will help to close the budget gap. I think they're the headlines in terms of the overall position. Obviously, there's quite a bit more detail in the report, but if members have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them. Thank you.
Okay, the recommendations are found on page 55 of the report, little 1, that the provisional outturn position for 22-23 financial year to be noted. Little 2, that the revenue commitments detailed in Appendix 2 be approved to be brought forward into 2023-2024. Little 3, that the movement of earmarked reserves in Appendix 3 be approved. Little 4, that the capital commitments in Appendix 4 be approved to be brought forward into 23-24. And 5, that the 421k of additional business rates income is used to close the budget gap for 2023-2024. With regard to this, did we want to talk about these things individually or collectively?
I just wanted to briefly go to the table at 3.4.1.
I just wanted, so I will so move the proposal. Do I have a seconder, please? Okay, so we'll look at them collectively. Councillor Focus.
Just wanted to go to the table at 3.4.1. I mean, had we have not had such a massive uplift in interest received, because obviously the interest rates went up. I mean, if we got to our actual budget, we would have actually been taking another, I don't know, 200 odd thousand pounds out of reserves. I'm pretty sure I've got that right, or 180,000. So the budget would have been over. So we've actually been saved by high interest rates, which you'll get used to this expression. It's what I always call hope economics or hope accountancy. I mean, if the interest rates had stayed flat, and there was no way of knowing where they were going to go sort of 18 months ago when we set this budget, but if they'd remained flat, we would have actually had a deficit of 200,000, and that concerns me enormously. I don't know what we're looking, nobody quite knows. It looks like interest rates are going to be very high, and I can't remember what figure you've got in there for income received investments for 23-24, but I think we should be mindful of that. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Obviously 3.8.1, it says, I just want clarity, the general fund balance, does the section 151 officer set that, or is that is there a government table that, I don't know, from whoever, SICFA or whoever, recommends that it's 2.6 million? Because, well, can I have an answer, and then I may have a supplementary, Chair?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, there is no prescribed amount set by government, and obviously the amount that needs to be set aside by each individual council sort of varies significantly based on their size of their budget and the potential risks that they face. So the responsibility of setting that minimum level of balances is set with the section 151 officer, and it is made in full view of a number of risks and challenges that the council faces in their individual circumstances.
Thank you, Chair. Can I come back? I did think that was the case, and I personally feel that, I know we're congratulating ourselves, I think we're 5.9 million or whatever it was, 5.8 higher than the 2.6, so we've got some money, but I personally don't feel as though we can sit on our laurels and think that we've done a really good job. Sorry, Mr. Dodson, I wasn't having a go. This is my view, yeah. So I think we still need to be cautious, because I don't think 2.6 million is a lot of money when things could go wrong within this council at, I think, a drop of a hat sometimes. Well, it could. Something could happen, and those reserves could be taken away like that. So would you envisage that the 2.6 million may go up with the risks of the council, or is this council comfortable it stays at 2.6 for this next financial year? It's a bit hypothetical, I do understand that, but I am actually generally concerned.
Yeah, so the current balance is about 5.1, so it's around double the recommended minimum. We will review that each year at as part of the budget setting process, and obviously I will be taking a view as the year commences in terms of the risks that the council's facing, so that may alter slightly, but I've got no reason to believe that the level that was set was based on anything other than the best information available at the time.
Can I make it clear, I wasn't having a go at Chris Leslie, who's gone. I just have got concerns. Chris Leslie did a fantastic job as the Section 151 officer here, and I don't want anybody to think I've casted any aspersions by asking those questions. I have my reasons, they may come out later.
That's noted, Councillor. I mean, it's very interesting to understand the fiscal opinion of people and things like that, but this is not what's on the agenda. We're proposing to agree to some various motions. So if there are any questions pertaining to the agenda, then I'd like to hear them, please.
Back on page 63, and I purposely won't speak to the drop in car parking income, because I think Mrs Green's done enough on car parking tonight. But on page 63, the two that sort of stuck out to me was one was the LTP review. So we got nearly £600,000 in the balance there to conduct a review. it looks to me as though the balance at the 31st of March is 830. These are huge amounts of money. I've not seen recently a breakdown of what that's being spent on. I think it's very important for this committee to see that quite clearly, and where that money comes from for the LDP review. My understanding is it comes either from the new homes bonus or something like that, which brings me nicely on to the bottom of page 63, where it actually talks about the new homes bonus reserve. Now, the whole idea of the new homes bonus reserve was to prop up infrastructure, and so we could bring forward our own infrastructure. So where we thought something was lacking, we could invest in something locally. There was talk about using new homes bonus to help support the provision of the new hospital, which we were told this week is going ahead. So that's something else that concerns me enormously, because what you're proposing through this report is to use that pot of money, which members always thought was for infrastructure, to actually prop up the general fund balance. I mean, my view would be we should be looking at ways of reducing our costs, not taking money that's come through the new homes bonus. That new homes bonus really is the backstop for people that have to put up with all these new houses being built. So, you know, I'd like to think that, I'd like to think that we could come up with some innovative thinking whereby we don't have to draw down so much from the new homes bonus to prop up this council.
Can I just ask Councillor Siddle to speak first? Maybe there's two questions to come together.
If it's okay to respond to that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so in terms of the LDP reserve, there is a clear plan of commitments against that money. I think for various reasons the monies haven't been spent quite as quickly as they originally envisaged, but there is definitely a requirement to use that money for the original purpose for which it was set aside, and there is, as I say, a clear plan about how that's intended to be spent over the next couple of years to help deliver that particular piece of work. With regards to new homes bonus, I think members may or may not be aware, but the government hasn't made any firm commitments to continue that scheme into the future. So there is quite a deal of an uncertainty around whether that particular funding stream will be continued. However, in the round, I think most councils are looking at their what government calls core spending power, which is all the kind of core grant streams that come in from government, including new homes bonus, in the round. And I think overall we're expecting that the amount of grant from government is not probably going to increase or decrease significantly, but I don't think viewing new homes bonus in isolation as a kind of particular funding stream that we can rely on is probably helpful at this stage. So I think we have to just view it as part of our overall funding package from government as part of the settlement.
I think, Chairman, there was a sort of a question in there as well about whether or not for future meeting of this committee, whether or not we could just have a short report on the LDP review budget heading, so that we can understand fully what's in there, where's it going, and how you feel that's going to project out over the next couple of years. Because, you know, there is a feeling in this council that the review should stop. But I think it's really important that we, with Councillor Durham, shame he's not here tonight. You know, and I miss him, and I'm sure he won't miss the £5,600 he gets to chair this committee. But I think we do really need to have a look at this LDP review and what we're expecting to get out of it, and what's it going to cost this council. Thank you.
I might suggest that that's possibly one to bring back to the finance working group that then reports into this committee. Or
look, I'm more than happy as long as it goes somewhere and it comes back here. But I think it's right and proper to review it, because, you know, we've got £830,000 sitting in that, which is only slightly less than the sort of whatever it is that we've got in the new homes bonus.
I did raise that point yesterday with the officer, that there's significant amounts of earmarked reserves that we probably would want to verify what they're there for in the first place. So I'm not sure if I can recommend that comes back to a committee or not.
I think we would certainly be looking to do a review of all reserves as part of the MPFS process, and obviously we're hopeful that all the members of this committee and of the finance working group will get the opportunity to scrutinise those. I mean, we can obviously look at that as a particular piece of work, but that would form part of the normal sort of work programme as part of the preparation of the MTFS anyway.
If it helps, I'm happy for it to go to the working group, and then we can meet the 151 officer and take it from there.
Do you want more?
I wanted to say, Chairman, you can recommend whatever you like sitting in that chair. So if you want to recommend that, make that recommendation, you can, and I'd second it.
I'm not entirely sure I'd want to at this moment in time. If it's going to be within the working groups, I think that would be acceptable means forward, but I think it's on the officer's agenda anyway, from having spoken to
I think that's probably the most practical option.
Yeah. Councillor Siddle?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we allocated a budget to the LDP when it started, and the fact that the LDP hasn't gone as quickly as we anticipated for various reasons, that's why that money is there and it's allocated to it. I don't think it's stopping or pausing or anything at all like that. In my personal view, that's what I hope not anyway. And in terms, in terms of the new homes bonus, I can remember 4 years ago, Councillor Fluker, you saying, "Oh yeah, okay, we've got the new homes bonus, and we can use that in terms of running the council." So yeah, I don't ever remember you saying it. So.
It was always there really for what new homes bonus always used to be for, which was to prop up infrastructure. So you collected in the money and then you spent it on infrastructure projects. And, you know, one of the great ones would have been trying to prop up this new hospital or putting the money towards the new road, although I understand another company's doing that now.
Okay, I propose that we move on now. I think we've talked this one to death.
Right, thank you, Chair. Mine really was just going through the additional appendices, and I think on page 59 it says the car parking underperformed due to COVID, but COVID has ended obviously for some time, so that might have been prudent to have had that for the previous item, and I wonder how much it had underperformed post-COVID. On page 61, you've got the tree works, and I know when I was chairing this, I actually asked whether we could go out and get quotes from small companies, because the original budget allowed was more than a lot of these companies earn in a year, and I would think it would be cheaper to actually hire one company for a year to carry out all the works, and I wonder if that was ever explored, because it was something I really wanted to see done. And on page 66 you've got the skate park, and it said it was waiting for section 106 funding that didn't happen. So where is this money coming from? Was it ever earmarked prior to the section 106, or has it come out of general budget? And the other concern I have is with still in section 106, I think we're going to see a massive decline in the build-out rates due to the interest rates going up. And another 3 construction companies have gone bankrupt this week, because I just keep getting reminders all the time on these construction companies going under. And of course, they put pressure on all the suppliers. I mean, City Plumbing is another one that's gone. Yeah, it's now called PTS. The emails all still come from City, but it's PTS or PST or something other it's called now. They've gone. So I wonder if we'd actually built that into our forecasts and our budgets, because I think this is going to be a really difficult factor which is going to squeeze our budgets, which is why I keep banging on that if we're going to be commercial, like with the car parking, it was the right thing to put it up, because we need every penny we can to support the services we need to support. Thank you.
Chairman, I'm happy to pick up the first two. So in respect of the car parking underperforming, it's the budget that's underperforming. The original budgets that were there prior to the full council transformation, we did actually deliver on those budgets. The £130,000 was an additional amount that was added into the budgets as part of the transformation programme in anticipation of additional income from the car parks. So it was not part of the original budget.
Sorry, can you turn that mic on? It's the people at home that won't be able to.
So if I just refresh, so the car parking budgets prior to the full council transformation, we were delivering on those. this £130,000 budget deficit is the £130,000 that was added in through the full council transformation process, where our consultants anticipated that the council would be able to deliver an additional £130,000 income. So it wasn't due to the service underperforming, it was due to the budgets being uplifted as part of the whole council transformation process. And in respect of the expenditure for the tree work, I can confirm that we have got in place now an agreement with Place Services to deliver this through a contract, and through Place Services we will ensure that the tree surgery work goes out to various contractors under that contract, so there will be value for money being delivered, and as a requirement we have required that a number of local contractors are included as part of that process, as members requested previously.
That's not...
I think we may be getting away from the agenda. The agenda isn't about... Okay.
Thank you for indulging me, Mr. Chair. Actually, I'm really worried about that, because if this car parking is underperformed, where's this 130,000 coming from? You can't just keep writing it off. If it was part of the plan that we were going to get it, obviously I understand COVID, but we've been post-COVID for some time now. Where's this budget gap coming from? Because that's another 130,000. And it's all these creeps of 100,000 here, 100,000 there, 100,000 there. They all tick up. You know, we are heading to a £2 million loss very quickly in our budgets. That's the first one. Where is it? Why isn't it there? And why were we not informed on the previous item? And with the tree works, when I was chair of SNR, I specifically asked, the thing was we were handing over £12,000, I think it was, to Essex Place Services to oversee part of what work needed to be done. But I specifically asked, Place Services were way more expensive than anybody else. So have I heard that correctly, that we're not actually employing local tree people, we're employing Essex Place Services who are subcontracting? Because for me, we don't want to be like UK Power and the Water Board and Northumberland, whoever they are now, who they take massive sums, and I think they only pay their workers £100, or their subcontractors who go, by the time you get down to about the bottom one, £100 a connection. Because I think we could do this better, and if it comes to it, pay local people more or a good rate, and not keep farming out all these consultancy fees. So how much are Essex Place Services gaining out of this when we should be doing this ourselves?
Through you, Chair. The £12,000 was the complete overseeing of all of the work. So the cost of the actual work will be as per the costs that come back from the companies that are being used, so that there are a list of local contractors that are used by Place Services, and therefore the cost of the council will be the cost that is being charged by those companies. The only additional charge is the £12,000, which members were aware of, to oversee the entire work. So there isn't essentially an extra cost on top of what those companies are charging.
Okay, so Place Services aren't employing these, we're employing these people ourselves. And this is what I'm trying to get to, because a lot of these tree surgeons, when you look up their accounts, the limited ones, they don't earn 110,000 a year, and that work I don't think would take more than 7 months. But this is what I'm trying to get to. So are we employing them directly, or are they being employed by Essex Place Services? And who's done the procurement?
So the procurement is being undertaken on our behalf by Place Services, and we are then billed for the cost of that work.
If I may just say, I mean, presume this says revenue commitments. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're exacting amounts that will be paid out, does it?
Absolutely, Chairman. So this is the amount that has been provisioned by the council to have the tree work undertaking. So Place Services are procuring that on our behalf, and then we will be billed for the cost of that work.
Yeah.
I'll just come back on that. This was a really, really hot topic, because the Dengie in particular, the Dengie Peninsula, has a lot of very small arboricultural companies. And when they saw this, they thought, lovely, we're going to get the opportunity. They've tried to register on the website, they've tried to talk to Essex Place Services, and the understanding is from these companies, who are all proficient, they're all qualified, they're all properly insured, is that it is a closed shop. So, Joan, through you, I'm going to ask Mrs. Green to supply me with a list of all the companies that Place Services has tendered with in the Dengie. Thank you.
Are you able to do that, Mrs. Green? I mean, I'd just like to say, I mean, bear in mind, this is commitments to going forward. We're not here to necessarily solve every single line item and come up with different conclusions, proposals. So really, I'd like to get on the agenda, unless there's anything actually pertaining to the item in terms of why we should or not should move it forward, just to try to get this moving forward a little bit. Councillor Fluker.
I know this is Councillor Stamp's pet one, but on page 66, I mean, I'm just really concerned about this budget for this new Burnham-on-Crouch pontoon. I'm involved in the project on Blackwater, and knowing what this pontoon looks like, I'm concerned that the figure in there is actually incorrect. It cannot
Mrs.
be.
Green, would that be yourself?
Chairman, while officers are pontificating, this is what the problem is with budgeting.
Through you, Chair, Councillor Fluker. Yeah, might have to come back and confirm on that, as I believe the council's own budget that was set aside of £60,000, yeah, that wasn't spent in the last financial year, so that full amount has been asked to be carried forward into the current financial year. However, there may be additional funding streams which are supplementing that, which are not part of this report, but we will come back to you and confirm that. Thank you.
Okay. I think, Councillor Driver.
Thank you for indulging me. Chair, the question I've got does relate to the LDP review sum, but within the purpose, it identifies that this reserve will now fund the work to enable implementation of the SIL, which potentially could bring in further money. I'm conscious that actually we tried to do that in 2017 and again in 2020 and were unsuccessful. So I'm just hoping that any lessons that need to be learnt from that process will be learnt and applied going forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The recommendations are found on page 55 of the report. Little one, that the provisional outturn position for 2022-2023 financial year be noted.
Councillor Thompson's had a hand up
Okay,
very quietly
sorry.
for quite a while now.
Councillor Thompson.
Apologies, especially as I'm a bit late with what I was going to say. It's a comment really about the car parking. It could still be post-pandemic because a lot of people took to online shopping and still are. That hasn't changed. In which case, we perhaps might need to look at our future budgeting for car parking if that's a trend. Could it continue? Anyway, thank you.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, just to clarify, Chairman, that we are currently delivering on the original budgets that were set for the car parking income. This is an extra income that was added into our budgets through the transformation programme, where the consultants anticipated we would be able to generate an extra £130 from our car parks, but there was no changes on our policy or approach to actually deliver that £130,000. That is in part one of the things that we will pick up through the car parking charging strategy to see if there's further opportunities to increase our charges or perhaps become a bit smarter in terms of the use of the car parks to generate additional income.
Okay. The recommendations are found on page 55 of the report. Little 1, that the provisional outturn position for 2022-23 financial year be noted. Little 2, that the revenue commitment detailed Appendix 2 be approved to be brought forward into 23-24. Little 3, that the movement of the earmark reserves in Appendix 3 be approved, that the capital commitments in Appendix 4 are approved to be brought forward 24, and that the 421k business rates income is to be used to close the budget. I just reported them because it's been quite a long, repeated them because it's been quite a long, but I so move. Do I have a seconder? Can we agree that by assent? Great.
I'm sorry, I don't support because I'd like you to know that I don't support because there are variations from what was agreed at previous strategy results meetings, and I'm concerned that we're allowing these slips in the budget to just go through.
Okay.
Because in a minute we're going to be under. So I'd like
Could I ask for those that are for then, please?
Chairman, can I, to make it easy for you, can I propose a recorded vote? I'm sure Councillor White will support that.
Okay. Can we have a recorded vote, please, Tara?
Yes, Chairman, of course. Members, if you could just indicate for, against, or abstain when I call your name, please. Starting with Councillor Fittock.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Barham.
Abstain.
Councillor Driver.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Fluker.
Against.
Councillor Jennings.
He's not here.
Yeah, apologies, thank you. Councillor Lay.
Against.
Councillor Fiddle.
For.
Councillor Stamp.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Thompson.
For.
Councillor White.
I'm sorry, Tara, but it's going to be against because I'm not happy with these accumulating losses.
So, Chairman, the results of that are 2 for, 4 against, and 3 abstentions.
Okay, that's failed then. Agenda item 10. We move to agenda item 10, area of special control of advertisements found in pages 67 to 78. Ms Alpin.
Chairman, just before you move on, sorry, on that previous item, is there any recommendations that are coming forward in following that refusal? That's fine. I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We move to agenda item 10, area of special control for advertisements found in pages 67 to 78. Oh, do we have to agree that by assent and if it's failed? Okay. We move to agenda item 10, area of special control for advertisements found in pages 67 to 78. Mrs Alban, please present the report, please.
Through you, Chair, it's actually myself presenting the report. Ms Alban is here to assist with questions should members have any. Thank you. Since 1988, most of the district has been designated as an area of special control for advertisements, where additional controls are placed on advertisements to protect rural amenity. The Council is required to review this order every 5 years in order to decide whether to reconfirm, modify or revoke the order, and a copy of the orders appended to the report in Appendix A. An area of special control order is used to restrict the size, height from the ground, number and illumination of adverts allowed in a designated area, and it gives more stringent controls over the advertisements. The Malden District ASC covers the rural area of the district, which requires special protection to preserve its visual amenity. As I said, it was designated in 1988 and covers the whole of the district except for some of the more built-up areas, being the settlements of Malden, Haybridge, Burnham-on-Crouch, Southminster, Mayland, St Lawrence and Tollesbury. The order's been reviewed a number of times, obviously 5 year interval since 1988, the last being in 2017, hence it's slightly overdue for review. Members will see in the conclusion of the report that it's the Office of View that the ASC order remains an important and effective measure to protect the character and visual amenity of the more rural parts of the district, and it should be retained. It's also noted that as the build-out of the LDP strategic allocations and other permitted major residential developments is still ongoing, it's recommended that the order is reconfirmed without modification. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. The recommendation is found on page 57 of the report. Please note that this is a recommendation to Council. That the area of special control order for advertisements is reconfirmed. I so move. Do I have a seconder? Okay. Members, over to you. Councillor Stamp.
Yes, Chairman. Just for clarification, because I can be a bit dense, as we all know it sometimes, does this include the developers' advertising boards around the new estates, or is this just what? Well, it is in Burnham. So, oh, okay. So just for clarity, then, so I'm talking rubbish. Yeah, you are. Can I have that from the top table, not from you, Councillor Fluker?
If I could respond through the chair, I think you'll find that those have been given express consent as part of the planning application.
Thank you, because that's what I wanted the clarity for, because I can remember writing in to complain about the huge size of some of them, and you see a person's face outside your kitchen window who's advertising a thing. I think I'd rather have Johnny Depp than the person that's sitting outside my window.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Can we agree this by assent? Thank you. We move to agenda item 11, business rates discretionary rate relief, found on pages 79 to 136. Mrs. Green, please could you present the report?
Thank you, members. So this is a fairly straightforward report in that we do have funds that are available to provide discretionary rate relief, and it is a requirement that that is approved by members. So the report is a fairly short one, fairly self-explanatory, and the policy provisions are at Appendix 1.
Over to you, members.
Agreed recommendations.
Yeah,
we need to
agreed.
support
Thank you
our
very much.
businesses.
Agreed by assent. We move on to agenda item 12, appointment of representatives of outside bodies and working groups, found on pages 137 to 138. Could you please present the report, Mr. Dodson?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, this report is to appoint members to working groups that sit underneath the Strategy and Resources Committee for the ensuing municipal year. Following the review of working groups and outside bodies, there are 3 groups to be appointed to, which are the Car Parking Task and Finish Working Group, which is 4 members, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Officer Working Group, 1 member, and the Waste Contract Member Working Group, 4 members. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. The recommendation is found on page 137 of the report, that the committee appoints representatives to the working groups as listed in section 3.2.1 of the report for ensuring a municipal year. There are 3 groups: Car Parking Task and Finish Working Group, 4 members, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Officer, 1 member currently, Waste Contract Member Working Group, 4 members. Do we have nominations? Councillor Fluker?
Well, I'd certainly, I mean, the car parking and the waste contract, I think it's incredibly important that the chairman of this committee, at the very least, sits on those. So I'm rather hoping you're going to tell me that he's volunteered to do that. And Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Officer, I mean, I'm hugely disappointed, Chairman, that we ended up with, we didn't have any ladies, you know, represented in the
Okay.
And that, you know, with the leader and the deputy leader and the chairman and the vice chairman, you know, I think it really would have been nice to apply some diversity there. And there was a decision. So based on that, Chairman, I propose Councillor White for the Diversity and Inclusion Officer Working Group. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Siddle?
So I suggest that we take each of these working groups in turn.
Okay.
And yeah, I would like to speak about the Equality Diversity Working Group.
Well, let's move on to the first one then. So we car parking.
So I would like to nominate Councillor Lay to the car parking. You can second yourself.
Any other nominations for car parking task and finish working group?
Have you noted, Councillor Chairman? I know he's
Yes.
willing to do that.
Okay. The next one will be. We need two more.
Yeah.
Councillor Driver, would you do it?
I'm happy to be involved with the car parking task and finish group. Chair.
Do you need? Is there someone to nominate Councillor Driver? Oh no. Yeah. And seconded. Okay. Anybody else? That's three, isn't it?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Fittock.
I'm on plenty of groups and working groups.
Welcome to my world.
Okay. Have we got three or four? I really can't attend. I can't attend anymore. I'm on lots.
We're not everybody's here tonight.
I'll nominate Councillor Brown.
Are we able to leave that one open in the short term? Councillor Brown, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Yes. Okay. Is that four now? Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Officer Working Group. Currently it's one member. We have a nomination of Councillor White and...
So I'd like to put forward a recommendation that this is expanded to 2 members rather than 1 member.
I'll second that.
Is that possible?
Okay. And I would like to nominate myself as one of the few people on this council that does represent a minority group.
Okay, I would second that. So
I would like to nominate Councillor Thompson.
Okay. So we have
working group.
Do we have a second for Councillor Thompson?
Well, I'll second myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to speak to that same recommendation. We did try this last year.
Okay.
I do think.
So I presume firstly we need to accept the recommendation to increase it to 2 votes to the person agreed, and then we'll presumably need to vote on the 3 members to get to. Okay, that's in order wise, isn't it? Yeah. So, sorry. Yeah. So those in favour of Councillor White. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. Those in favour of Councillor Siddle? 5. Those in favour of Councillor Thompson? So as I understand it,
Everybody should have 2 votes, if that's the way it's working.
yeah, but I think as I understand it that the lowest 2 drop out, don't they? Yeah. As I understand it, the lowest 2 drop out, don't they?
The lowest one, but it's only 3 to start with. So,
but it would be the lowest 2, which means Siddle goes through. And
Councillor Siddle and Councillor Thompson.
They both had. Thompson had 4. White had 4. And Siddle had 5.
No, one.
Councillor Siddle had 5. So as I understand it, it would be the bottom 2 drop out. Councillor Siddle gets elected.
Can we, Tara, do you want to?
Is it easier if I just call the names and record who's voting for what?
I think the problem we have is the selection protocol, and as I understand it, that it's the lowest 2 drop out in the first round, which means that Councillor Siddle would be elected, and now it's between Councillor White and Councillor Thompson.
That's right, Chairman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now we have two persons for the last position, which are Councillor Thompson and Councillor White. So those in favour of Councillor White, please. Yeah. 4 in favour of Councillor White. Those in favour of Councillor Thompson? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 4 each.
You got the casting vote then.
It's a difficult one. I will go with Councillor Thompson. Thank you. Sorry, it's Councillor White. Okay. So that would be Councillor Thompson and Councillor Siddle. Do we now? The third working group is the Waste Contract Member Working Group, for which we need 4 members. I propose Councillor Siddle.
Councillor Durham had asked you to put him forward at the agenda meeting.
Yep. Councillor, just on that, Councillor Durham had expressed an interest in this, being in this group, as long as it didn't get in the way of anybody else. Okay. So we have. Yeah, that's what he said he would do. So we have. So where are we? We've got Councillor Siddle.
Councillor Fluker.
Do we have a second of a Councillor Fluker? Yeah. Okay, that's 3. We need 1 more member. Councillor Driver.
I withdraw from that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Anybody else express an interest in this? Councillor Bowen? Okay. Right, okay, that's the 4 then. Thank you very much. Can we agree with those by assent? Thank you. Item number 13. Any other items of business the chairman decides are urgent? There are none. Item 14, exclusion of public and press. Under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that it involves a likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 2, 3 and 5 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and this satisfies the public interest as I so move. Do I have a seconder? Okay. Can we agree that by assent? Thank you.